What exactly is a true calling and how on earth do we find it? Join me, Annabelle Beckwith, as I speak to numerous women who are on that very journey and from whom we can all learn how to find our own true calling. My guest today is Bayile Adeoti. Now, Bayile is a champion for women in entrepreneurship, particularly women from a black and minority ethnic background. Now, in her childhood, Bayile found herself wondering how she fitted in, where she fitted in, and she wasn't happy with the responses that she was getting from people around her, defining where she should and shouldn't fit in. So she chose to follow her true calling and find her own path. Now, she's really highly regarded in the work that she does, so much so that she was recently invited to the coronation, to the actual coronation, I'm so excited, of King Charles III just a couple of months ago. And of course, before we started to explore her own story and her own true calling, I had to ask her, what was it like to be present at this most historic of moments in British history? Let's hear what she had to say. So welcome to the show, Bayile Adeoti. Bayile, I'm absolutely delighted to have you with us today on True Calling. Now, as I've already explained, Bayile is a champion for women's entrepreneurship, particularly amongst black and minority ethnic groups. But that's not where she started. We'll hear her story in a minute. Now, Bayile is widely recognised for the work that she does, to the extent that, and Bayile, I have to just flag this up now because I was so excited on your behalf, Bayile was actually invited to the coronation of His Majesty King Charles III. So was there actually in the Abbey. Now, Bayile, before we hear about your story and kind of what led to that point and that level of recognition, what was it like? What was it like?
Annabelle, I have to say it was the most surreal experience to be in the Abbey, to witness that moment with everyone, especially because there was no seating plan. So you got to sit wherever you wanted, as long as, well, there was a seating plan in the sense that different people had different coloured cards. So I had a yellow card, which was in the nave. So you could just sit wherever you wanted. So across from me, I had Oswald Botan, the fashion designer, who designed for like the England football team suits and currently designs for British Airways. So he was my direct eye contact. And the gentleman who sat next to me to the left is the chief prosecutor in England and Wales. So he took over from Keir Starmer. He's a lovely gentleman, Max Hell Casey. And he was telling me who was who when, if I didn't know someone, he just knew everybody. And then I had lovely Jackie Briarton from Growbiz to the right of me. And yeah, it was long in the sense that we had to be there from 8:15 or so seated.
Oh, did you? 8:15? My goodness.
From 8:15. And obviously the cameras had been rolling from 6 o'clock. We're seated and you weren't allowed your phones from about 9 o'clock. But it was just an opportunity to chat and get to know people and just also take in the surroundings, like the stained glass windows, just sitting there and looking at all the writing on the windows and who they were dedicated to. So to the medical professionals, and some windows were dedicated to men and women who'd been in the army. So yeah, it was a beautiful time of reflection, but also just to acknowledge that transition. And that's what Max had said to me. He said the last time he was in the Abbey was for the Queen's funeral. And now he was there for King Charles's. And I said to him, you've witnessed such a critical moment of transition in the United Kingdom. And I think that's something that we are all seeing and recognising. It's the first time in 70 years to have a coronation.
Yes.
And just to be in that moment of history, the whole world was looking at the United Kingdom in that moment. And to actually be in the Abbey, some of my friends, the penny didn't drop until they saw me on TV later on that day. They said to me, Bayile, when you said you were going to the coronation, you've been invited. I thought you were going to be in a separate church. I wasn't expecting to be in the actual Abbey. Or they thought I was going to be at Holyrood in Edinburgh watching it there, as many people have been invited to. But yeah, it was such a privilege. And something that I say to everybody was, when I went into the Abbey, I didn't just go as Bayile. I knew I was representing many people, many different communities, and souls that I support through the work that we do, my faith, to be there as a Christian in that moment, and just, so many different people. So I felt like I was an ambassador for Scotland, an ambassador for communities, an ambassador for young people, an ambassador for ethnic minority groups. But it was such a privilege, and it's not one that I take lightly. I'm truly grateful.
Yeah, and so you were indeed an ambassador. Another way that you just referring to the gentleman you were sitting next to, who for overseas viewers is the most senior lawyer in the entire country. And Bayile is saying, so I said to Max, and Max said to me, but again, as you say, in that kind of environment, how fascinating that it is such a leveler. You know, if you met these people, well, hopefully you would not meet the chief prosecutor, because it's likely that you'd be in the dock unless it was some kind of social circumstance. And everybody from so many different backgrounds, and as you say, representatives of so many different faiths, backgrounds, communities, and so on, were there witnessing this historic moment. I'm a bit of a history geek, so the whole history of it and the fact that this ceremony has been going on for 1,000 years, that's the bit where I'm thinking, we're witnessing a really a pivotal moment, as you say, in UK history. So it's just really exciting that you were there. However, the subject of our conversation in True Calling is very much around your story, and so you run a business called Decamai, which is a social enterprise which provides enterprise education for women, particularly from Black ethnic. I'm making up my own vocabulary here. Minority ethnic communities, having spotted a gap in the market. But what's got you to this particular point, Bayile? Tell us, where did you come from? Where did all of this come from? Where are you now? What's your story?
So I was born in Malawi, but then moved to Bath in England when I was 5, so moved for primary school. And I guess when I moved over, it was hard for me to transition, like with the language, even though I spoke English, but to be writing in English constantly. And I think when I was growing up, I always just think, like, where do I fit in? What am I good at? And as a young person, you want to do so well in different things, and you see your peers doing well in different things, and you just think, I can do well in that too. And I think it's, in a way, not knowing who I was, but then also knowing that there were some things I liked to do that my peers didn't like to do. So I could either fit into the box that I guess society and the world wanted me to fit into, or I could colour around the edges. And it was only when I was in secondary school, so I went to secondary school in Glasgow, at Highland Secondary School, that my guidance teacher, realised that I was really good at languages, so she made sure that I got tutorial. I could pick languages up easily, so she made sure I got extra tutorial to make sure that my languages were all balanced out. But then the other thing Mrs. Ritchie identified was the fact that a person like me could also benefit on something like the Young Enterprise Programme. Mrs. Ritchie put me forward to the company programme, and I'm forever grateful for that, because it gave me an opportunity to experience running a company as a 15-year-old, working with other people who also had gifts and talents and doing other things, more creative things. But it also made me see that there was life out with your standard educational pathways, that you could do other things. And it made me take a keen interest in entrepreneurship. And I remember saying to my dad that I wanted to go and study business at university, and he told me that I shouldn't and I couldn't, because for ethnic minorities in Scotland, business and entrepreneurship is not something favourable. So he told me to go and study computer science because I was creative, I was a problem solver, and he said that I could still use that creative output, but just in coding. And I went to do coding, and even though I was good at it, I wasn't passionate about it. And I soon realised that I thought, I can't see myself doing this for the rest of my life because I'm not passionate about it. And I realised that I needed to be passionate about something. So I stopped going to college without telling my dad. And I went to work at my part-time job, which I was passionate about. It filled me with passion. And that was at McDonald's. And McDonald's gave me a sense of grounding because it told me about different things about businesses. It also made you value their values, what was important to them, their history. I learned a lot about McDonald's history, and it's something that I remember when I did later on go and study business. I always use McDonald's as a case study because they told you so much about the organization that you could carry it with you. And then later on, I went to work for United Colours of Benetton, and United Colours of Benetton were the same. They told you about their mission, their vision, their values. And once again, I was able to use that in several case studies because you weren't just there selling clothes. It was why those clothes were in cashmere, why you were not buying a jumper. You were actually buying a jumper that was going to last you 3 years. They were always guaranteed to last you 3 years. So it's actually an investment. And so United Colours of Benetton believed so much in diversity. They were groundbreaking. You know yourself, Annabelle.
Yes.
90s and the early 2000s.
Their advertising was legendary. Yeah.
Legendary, controversial, but made you see that life wasn't black and white, that there was colour and we could all fit in this global picture. So yeah, after working for people like McDonald's, United Colours of Benetton, ended up working in hospitality, once again for small leisure companies that dealt with bars and restaurants. And it was from there, I did dabble back in fashion, back and forth. But it was when I was working in hospitality, I started off as a marketing assistant, marketing manager, then went to operations manager. And I realised that many people from ethnic minority communities lacked those opportunities like I had. And it was quite evident because I had many people saying to me, Bayile, how did you get the job? And how did you get the company car? And I was like, okay. And so I'd heard about social enterprise, and my mum had told me about social enterprise, and she just said, it's about finding a problem and then thinking how you can monetize it into a solution. And so I kept on working in hospitality, but I decided that I would use Decima as a platform for creating employment for other people from ethnic minorities, but not front of house serving coffees, not behind the scenes washing dishes, but actually doing things that help them in that work experience. And we were able to do that. I always say to people too that, Mark Twain says that the two greatest days in a person's life is the day that they were born and the day that they realize why. And I think deep down, Annabelle, injustice is one of my core values, and equity and making sure everyone has an opportunity, the same opportunities. And I realized, I guess, if you were to look at your life and reflect back, I was afforded opportunities that maybe many others, like the coronation, don't get a chance to. But it's also an opportunity for me to say, well, actually, you could have that opportunity. And that's what I see Decima as, is an opportunity to break any glass ceilings, any limitations that people from minority communities find themselves in, to say, it is possible and nothing is impossible.
Absolutely fantastic. Bayile, there's just so much. So I've been scribbling a few notes here discreetly at the side because there's several things that I wanted to ask you. And like right from your earliest days when you were thinking, I don't quite fit into the box here.
And that's something I think that many people will have felt, whether they have an entrepreneurial drive or a creative drive, and they're in a scientific family or whatever. It's like, I don't quite fit into to the box there. And also one of the things that's jumped out at me that your teacher recognised this when you got to secondary school. And isn't it? It's and your parents as well. I mean, it turns out when your dad said, "Listen, entrepreneurship," it turns out he was right, and that was the thing that you thought, right? Okay, I'm going to do something about this, rather than shying away from it and thinking, right, that's not for me, that's not for people like me. You were thinking, no, it is, and I'm going to do something about it. But your teacher saw something there and encouraged you, and it's. What I'm kind of reading into what you've just said is this is now what you're looking to do for other people is to recognise in them and get them to see things in themselves that they might not have seen before, and to provide them with the with those opportunities. So you spoke also about your values being equality, standing against injustice, and these deeper things. And with many of my guests on True Calling, that is something that has come out, is that they've got really, really deep-seated values that are what's actually driving them to do what they do. So coming back to where you are now and the work that you're doing with women entrepreneurs and so on, what sort of challenges? And I'm, it's one of those things where, as you say, people say, Bayile, how did you get the job? How did you get the company car and so on? It's one of those things where it's, on one hand, I'm thinking it is absolutely wonderful that you are such a role model and such a champion. On the other hand, you think it fills me with slight dismay that women are asking that question, how did you do that, as though it's something that's impossible for them. What would you say are some of the main challenges that women from ethnic backgrounds face that maybe their counterparts from other communities don't face, would you say?
Yeah, thank you, Annabelle. I think you've hit the nail on the head. Lack of role models and representation. So you can't be what you can't see.
Yeah.
And if an ethnic minority woman doesn't see another woman doing something that she wants to do, then she thinks, oh, it's not possible. And she's just seeing the same faces and it's not possible. And it also permeates through the young people because they don't see that. And then they'll think, oh, actually, I can't do that. And then their parents will say, well, I don't know anyone that is doing that. And I guess not hearing those success stories of people that are, and sometimes not even success stories, I will say, and many entrepreneurs listening to this will be like, entrepreneurship's not a success story. People just see the tip of the iceberg.
Yes.
Success. They don't know that 80% of the iceberg is actually underneath, and that's the challenges and trials that you go through. But I also think that even culturally, there are barriers that ethnic minority communities face to overcome. And I think it's about breaking down those cultural barriers, the perception on what is possible, and even, as I said, like the limitations themselves. So you might just say, I only know someone who's gone this far. So for example, in Scotland, I think the highest position in education a Black person has got in Scotland tends to be head teacher. They don't get into educational policy and different things. So and that's probably why there are not many Black teachers in schools. I think there's only 5 Black head teachers in the whole of Scotland.
Wow.
So is that an opportunity? I say it is an opportunity to do more community outreaches, to get more Black and ethnic minorities into education and teaching, but also would that deter people from moving forward? Because they think, well, if I'm going to be a teacher, I won't get as far as being a head teacher, because I've never seen anyone in the Scottish government on an educational side, and it's more policy that I want to do, but it seems as if it's not favourable. So maybe I might go into academia, where maybe it's slightly better playing field, but there's more opportunities. And it is about just trying to showcase more people in those I guess, areas and corners of society that
Yeah.
are doing it, but also just to support them with different, and whether it's entrepreneurship, so something that specialised like grant funding for
Yeah.
entrepreneurs from minority communities in Scotland, that would be so beneficial, and something that Scotland is lacking.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was born and brought up in England, close to Bath, funnily enough. But I've lived in Scotland for nearly 30 years, and certainly when I was a student in Birmingham in the Midlands, so again for overseas viewers, an extremely multicultural city. And when I first moved to Scotland, I was looking around thinking, where is everybody? Because it wasn't ethnically diverse, and it is more ethnically diverse now, but not to the same extent that it is in England, certainly in the bigger cities of England. So I absolutely see what you're saying, is that people from black and minority ethnic groups haven't been as conspicuous, and again, that thing that you say about role models are so crucial. What was the phrase that you used? You can't be what you can't see. Was that? Did I get that? And especially for children and younger people to actually see that. To see role models and people who are like them, who are in the forefront of society and who are representative of what can be done. I know it's not the same thing, but it's only in the last few years when we look at advertising and so forth here in the UK, where there's been far more in TV advertising and like any visual advertising, where there has been a depiction of mixed race families. And it's and it's now normal, because I'm from a mixed race family, and throughout my childhood it was just like not seeing a family group that looked like you, or just not seeing people who looked like you or sounded like you or whatever. And I'm not, particularly, people think, this, but it's difficult to pin down what my background is. But that thing about being seen is so important. What sort of things, in terms of building the confidence of people who are from an ethnic background, who are thinking, do you know what, I want to break through this glass ceiling. I've seen Bayile do it. I've seen other people do it. I've seen them get so far. I want to get further. What are some of the confidence factors, some of the mindset factors that you work with people to achieve and overcome?
Annabelle, if you permit me, I always tell them something and it's one of the last things that my mum told me, and it comes from the Bible, and it's Luke 1:37. Nothing is impossible. So I always tell them that nothing is impossible. Everything that I do and everything that I have done or achieved, I guess I've always thought, no, that's not possible. Or, so for example, the coronation, I'd always thought it'd be nice to get an invitation from Buckingham Palace, especially because I shared the same birthday as the Queen. As I grew up, I started thinking, no, it won't be possible for me to get that invitation, because the Queen tends to invite people to garden parties. She sends the birthday card if you're turning 100. By the time I'm 100, the Queen won't be here. But look at God. On the 20th of April this year, I received the invitation for the coronation, which just shows me that nothing is impossible. The thing that I'd always dreamt about as an 8-year-old girl happened. And did I think Declan I would get this far? No. Did I think it was going to get this big? No. I had something in my belly, something that I dreamt about. People who know me would tell you, Bayile had a dream, even when I was working in hospitality, before I even knew what a social enterprise was. I always said to people, I want to work with women. I want to help support women. I just didn't know. I just didn't know how. I just didn't know why. I couldn't pinpoint it. And I think it's, once again, these golden nuggets that happen on our path that we start putting these pieces of the jigsaw together. So yeah, my first bit of advice is nothing is impossible. Second thing, make sure you support yourself, and surround yourself with a great support network. Because you will go through trials and tribulations. And I always find that I'm my own worst enemy. I can talk myself down, but I'm everyone's great cheerleader. So if I need to surround myself with people that cheer me on, but are honest with me, that tell me, okay, Bayile, let's have a think about all this. So I've got a great guy that works for me called Kojo, and Kojo's my right-hand man. And he calls me the Chief Visionary Officer in Decamai. So that's my official title. But Kojo is the one that keeps me grounded. So I might say to him, I've got this vision. And then he will say, that's great, Bayile. We're here right now at point A. You want us to get to point R. There's a few things that we need to do in between to get to the point R. And he believes in the vision, and he'll help drive that vision forward. And it's always great that later on then we'll be like, oh, remember we said we're going to do that, and we're actually here now. We're here, and we've actually gone past R. We're doing it. And so I think that's really, really important. And I think it's also the resilience, because ethnic minority entrepreneurs, according to the Federation of Small Businesses, are twice as ambitious in comparison to other groups when it comes to setting up businesses, but they're also twice as likely to fail because of, I guess, the way things are in their path. So it's having that resilience. Do you want to try it out? It might be that you don't go straight in head first. Work for other people. See what it's like to work really closely with founders. See whether you like it, and then if you do, take a wee, like dip your toes in and keep getting a bit deeper and deeper and deeper into that entrepreneurship field until you're just flying on your own. And something else that I reiterate to people is, where I am is great, but they will do greater things. Because
what a wonderful sentiment.
The way I say it is, I'm just creating a way. I'm just bulldozing the way, creating a path. And what took me 5 years to achieve, I want people to achieve in a year, 6 months.
Wow. And that, do you know what? That's come out with many of my guests, where their true calling is actually in the service of others. And just something that came to mind just as you were saying that final piece, there's one of my favorite quotations is one by the American writer Muriel Strode, where she says, "Do not follow where the path may lead. Go instead to where there is no path and leave a trail." And that's absolutely what you're doing. And I really like what you say there. I mean, so many truths there around it's, that there's ups and downs, and get the right support network around you, and people who are going to be your cheerleaders, people who can do the planning, people, if your forte is the vision piece, then who is going to be helping you put the steps in place to help you accomplish what you want to do. And I also, that to start with that Bible verse, that nothing is impossible. Now, even if people watching this, if you have a faith in God, then you'll be on the same page as Bayile and I here. Even if you don't, then secularize it. The universe, term it how you use your own vocabulary here, but nothing is impossible. And also a verse that comes to mind just in your own story, Bayile, where you were thinking, well, I was just following the vision. I was following that fire in my belly, and these opportunities came up. Is where, I can't remember where it is in the Bible. It says He is able to do more than we can ask or imagine. And it's also that thing about, if you wish to secularize it, to say, and there's books, aren't there, like The Universe Has Your Back and so forth, where it's like the world, the universe is bigger than we think. And sometimes it's the confines of our own imagination, the confines of our own self-belief is what is stopping us there. So I really like what you're saying there in terms of encouraging people. Again, on a practical note, Bayile, because I know you say that statistically, businesses founded by ethnic minority founders are lower in number. There's also statistics that businesses founded by women are fewer. Businesses that are founded by women that attract funding and investment are fewer. So it's almost like you've got a double whammy here. what are some of the things that you're saying individually yourself, but also as an organisation, as a champion in this arena, to investors, to funders, to those who are not part of the Black and minority ethnic community, who maybe unknowingly, unwitting, I mean, maybe it is knowingly, but let's choose to assume not, who might be unknowingly providing barriers without even realising it? What's your core message to the rest of us, basically?
For Scotland, my message is, you've heard the data, you've seen everything that people are saying, and it is a time for us to change and time for us to look under the bonnet and see what's not working before the wheels come off, before the engine stops working. I think it is important for us to, as a nation, to really look into what can help Scotland grow. And Scotland's got so much potential as a nation to grow. We've seen the Pathways report, which was written by Anna Stewart and Mark Logan,
yes,
female entrepreneurship and the barriers to female entrepreneurship. We've seen that, but the data shows that ethnic minorities, especially women, do face further barriers. The Gender Index released their report last week, and it showed that Scotland, especially ethnic minority females in Scotland, were underperforming in comparison to other devolved nations in the UK, which shows that ethnic minority women in Scotland could do with further support to even get them onto the UK average, which was 13%.
Wow. And it's something, isn't it? And obviously you're based in Scotland, here in Scotland. But those statistics are one that sadly we see both nationally across the UK and indeed internationally. It's a topic of constant conversation, that when we're talking about diversity, we're not just talking about diversity and ticking the box. Yeah. I've got somebody representative in my team or in my funding program or whatever. We're talking about inclusion and making sure people's voices are heard, and equality, ensuring that the opportunities are genuinely equal. And sometimes you see the news and the media and even stuff on LinkedIn, and you think, well, we've still got quite a long way to go on that score.
Yeah, and one of my favourite quotes that I always say to people coming from an events background is, diversity is being invited to the party without asking for an invitation. Equity is having an accessible ramp to the floor. Not everyone can walk up the stairs or through the door. Inclusion is being asked to dance or being offered refreshments or being asked to help to clean up. That's always a big thing. And belonging is deciding the music, the decorations of food. And the best party is always the one that you hate to leave because you feel like it's your party. And I think belonging, that's one of the core things that every human has, is a sense of belonging. I belong to Scotland and I want to contribute to Scotland's economic growth. Brand Scotland, I should say, has got so much to offer the world, but it has to be seen as welcoming, and for people coming in Scotland to see that there are opportunities and they can also belong in Scotland, that there's a place for them, that they can fit, that they can contribute, and they can also think, I don't want to leave here because I belong here.
Yeah, that's also a really strong point, isn't it? That sense of self, that sense of belonging, and support. So, Bayile, I think it's a sort of fitting place just to sort of close off, perhaps with this question: what next? What next for you? What's next in your line of sights in the coming months?
What next? I'm slowing down a bit. I'm taking part in a scale-up program that's been supported by Sir Tom Hunter. And so it's just re-looking at Decamite, how we can grow, how we can scale. And we've got some things that we've got in the pipeline, and this will support it. I think as a team, we are developing products to help grow and support more people. We want to, I think I've got friends around me who've got audacious visions. They want to support like 1 million Black women. And I'm like, oh, you've got that audacious vision. I need to, with my team, also have a similar vision, not copying them, but we also want to have like that audacious vision. So it's revisiting our mission and our vision and thinking, okay, we were thinking small, because sometimes we put ourselves in that box, but it's important to know that we can support. I mean, I always say each one teach one. So if I can teach one person and then they can teach one person, then the world will be a better place, and the UK and Scotland will be a better place. So it's just for us over the next few months, how can we reach more people effectively, and have them do the work that they should be doing as entrepreneurs, but also supporting them in that success without making them another statistic of failure. And also to hit that point that in the UK we have this negative connotation about failure, whilst in America and other places failure is
learning.
Learning. When you failed, what did you do? And all these things, so much learning. So it's also how you pick yourself up. So it also teaches them how you pick yourself up. And I think, there's so much that we can still talk about.
There is indeed, but time is running away with us. And again, what a great note to close on, that it's about continued growth. It's about following that vision, pushing it as far as it will go, continue to learn, continue to grow. Bayile, thank you so much for joining me on True Calling. Thank you so much for being such a trailblazer and a fantastic role model for women from Black and minority ethnic backgrounds who are entrepreneurs. They might not know it yet, but they are, and you're helping them to find their true calling as well and really step up into their fullest potential. Bayile, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
What a story, and what experiences and insights Bayile has to share with us all. I was really touched by the fact that she's really squeezed every last drop of learning from every experience that she's had throughout her working life, whether it's working at McDonald's, working in a retail environment, exploring different avenues until she found her true calling. And now, not only is she carving a route for herself, she is creating a safe space for others to be inspired and move forward and to be encouraged to follow their own true calling. And just to draw out a couple of points here, what Bayile says about being a role model and being a visible role model for others is so, so important. If you can't see somebody, as Bayile says, in a particular role, it's hard to imagine yourself in that particular role. And with a view to the work that she does, working with younger people and women who are coming up behind her, who want to move forward in this field of entrepreneurship, who want to fulfill their own ambitions and their own potential, having a visible role model and being seen is so important. Sometimes being seen can take courage, but courage we must have if we are to be that role model for others. Being visible, really, really important. She speaks also about surrounding yourself with the right people and having the right support network around you. That's not the first time that one of my guests has said that on True Calling. And she speaks with great passion about her faith and how that is helping her move forward. Friends, whatever you are doing today, choose to take steps in the direction of your own true calling.